Hello, historians, and welcome to the second part of our podcast. As was previously mentioned, a lot of these Enlightenment ideas were seen as controversial, meaning hot topics that made certain people really mad because these people wanted to keep their their old ways of thinking. Some other examples of controversial topics today that make people very upset would be whether or not to legalize abortion and allow abortions, whether or not to allow gay marriage, whether or not to issue the death sentence to individuals convicted of a crime, and whether or not to legalize marijuana. These issues are seen as controversial, hot topics that cause fights because some people have old ways of thinking. Ideas that abortions are bad, ideas that gay marriage is a sin, ideas that the death penalty is a sin, and ideas that marijuana is not good for you. And so we have some people that support these ideas, some people that are against these ideas, and therefore these ideas are controversial. Now, just like these ideas are controversial today, the Enlightenment ideas, those 6 ideas that we circled earlier, were very controversial back then. Some of the people who did not like these new Enlightenment ideas, who wanted to keep the medieval, meaning the old way of thinking, were the dictators and tyrants. Okay, remember that a dictator and a tyrant mean the same exact thing. These are leaders who do not want to give their people rights. These are leaders who want all the power. These are leaders who pretty much want to abuse and do whatever they want with their people. The dictators and tyrants of the 16 and 1700s disliked the Enlightenment ideas so much that they wanted to censor, meaning stop the ideas and the philosophers. And so a lot of the dictators we're going to see are going to try to censor, stop these new governmental democratic Enlightenment ideas by making it illegal to talk about these things, by jailing the philosopher thinkers, by burning their books, by not allowing them to meet in bars or parks and discuss their ideas. Now, even though these Enlightenment ideas, even though dictators and tyrants are going to try to censor these ideas are still going to find their way out. And these ideas are still going to trickle into the different ears of the many different people around the world. And so we will still see lots of revolts, lots of fights happen because people are being inspired by these ideas and therefore are wanting to fight their dictators. Here is a perfect example of people in France who are very excited about these Enlightenment ideas. They're meeting here in what's called the tennis court room, and they're all screaming and yelling because they're cheering on the main speaker, who is basically reciting some of the Enlightenment ideas, basically reading out some of the Enlightenment ideas, and he is getting all the people in this room super excited to go and launch a revolution against the King of France. Now, if you remember our college level writing notes, we learned that the people of France launch a revolution against the king and queen and ultimately chop off the king and queen's head with the guillotine. We'll get into more details about that revolution next unit, but the French people are very much excited by these controversial Enlightenment ideas. Now, let's talk about some more revolutionary, make sure you jot this down, some more revolutionary, some more changing Enlightenment ideas. 2 very popular Enlightenment ideas that caused people to revolt were the idea of popular sovereignty and consent of the governed. Let's break down those 2 ideas. Popular sovereignty is an idea that the people have the power in a government, not the leader. So let's take a look at this word popular sovereignty. Popular literally means people. Please go ahead and annotate that popular means people. And sovereignty literally means power. Go ahead and annotate that as well. So literally, popular sovereignty means people power. It's the idea that the people, like you and I, have the power, not our leader, not our president. We have the power. And so popular sovereignty is another way of saying democracy, because democracy also means people power. Now, because the people have the power, the leader's only job, the only reason that the leader is there or that the leader was elected or the only reason that the leader was given power is because the leader, he or she, their only job is to serve us, the people, and to do what we, the people, want. That's their only job. Now, because the leader's only job is to serve the people, literally the leader's kind of like our maid. They are supposed to listen to what we, the people, want. They're supposed to do what we, the people, want because we, the people, are the ones in charge. We are the boss. If we take a look at this picture here, this does a really nice job of showing us what popular sovereignty means. We, the people, which are represented by all of these hands, we, the people, have the power because we vote our leader into power, meaning that we give him or her the ability to be our leader. And we expect them to do what we want because we have given them the power to basically serve us. Now, another really key idea in the Enlightenment time period was the idea of consent of the governed. This is the idea that the government exists only because of the consent, meaning the permission of the people. Now, if we take a look at this picture, we can see here is the government official. Here is the elected leader that the people over here have given the power to. So we, the people, we give the power to this leader. Now, we give the power because we choose to support them. We choose to kind of stand on this imaginary plank. And because we stand on this plank, that is why the leader is able to be in power. But if the leader upsets us or starts acting like a dictator or is not serving us, then we, the people, just like this guy, we can choose to walk away from the plank. And if enough of us walk away from this plank, then as you can imagine, this leader will fall off the cliff. Meaning that we, the people, can choose to take our votes away, or we can choose to get rid of this leader because they are the only reason, we are the only reason that they exist. We give them permission. We give them consent. Again, if the government isn't doing its job, then we, the people, can take away our permission for them to exist. I'd like you to go ahead and circle numbers 1 and 2 because this idea that we have the power, this idea that the leader's job is to serve us, this idea that the leader exists because we allow him or her, we give them permission, and this idea that we can take away the permission for them to exist, all 4 of these Enlightenment ideas, which were very revolutionary, meaning they were huge, big changes in thinking, these are all ideas that we, the United States, and other Western countries have borrowed from the Enlightenment. Now, consent of the governed and popular sovereignty, the 2 ideas that we just discussed in the previous slide, we can see their pictures here. These ideas were revolutionary. They were new ways of thinking. And these ideas were going against the medieval, the old ways of thinking. And let's talk about those medieval, meaning those old ways of thinking about government now. Make sure you annotate that. Medieval means old. So one of the old medieval ideas was that the governments believed that they had the power to be the leader because God had chosen them. And whenever leaders would say, I have the right to be your leader, and I have the right to be a dictator, and I have the right to be a tyrant, and I have a right to do whatever I want because God chose me, that was called divine right. The idea that God had chosen this person to be the leader basically made this leader feel like I can do whatever I want because God chose me and God doesn't make mistakes. And if you challenge me, the leader, then you're challenging God and you don't want to challenge God. So a lot of these people said, don't mess with me. I'm your leader. God chose me to be your leader and you just have to listen to whatever I say. Now, the idea of God choosing the leader pretty much is the opposite of people having the power. In popular sovereignty, where people have the power, a leader would not have the power even if God chose him or her. So divine right was basically the opposite of popular sovereignty, which is why we see popular sovereignty crossed out. The next medieval or old way of thinking was called absolutism. And absolutism was basically when a leader believed that they had all the power all the time. That they pretty much, let's say this is the leader, that they pretty much could get on top of the subjects and abuse the subjects and mistreat the subjects and just pretty much do whatever they wanted. I'm the big honcho, I'm the big leader on campus because God chose me, so I have all the power all the time. I can do whatever I want. That's called absolutism. Absolutism is the opposite of consent of the governed. So we're going to go ahead and cross out consent of the governed here, because consent of the governed pretty much says, no, you, the leader, don't have the power all the time. We let you have the power by supporting you, and we can take that power away. Rulers who practice absolutism, rulers who stated that divine right is why they had the power, these rulers could be called absolutists, they could be called dictators, and they could also be called tyrants. Absolutists, dictators, tyrants, all of these words pretty much mean the same thing, a leader who does not give their people any power or any rights. Now that we've talked about what a revolution is, what the Enlightenment was, the different democratic, meaning people power ideas that the Enlightenment came up with, how Western, meaning advanced nations, borrowed these ideas, and how these ideas were seen as controversial, meaning hot topics that went against the old medieval ideas. Let's go ahead and check your understanding by jumping into the exit ticket. For your exit ticket, you're going to write a 5-sentence free write paragraph that addresses the prompt below. Then you're going to rate your level of understanding on today's objective. Our prompt says, define the terms revolution and enlightenment, then explain 3 ways that the Enlightenment influenced Western political thought. Meaning, explain 3 things that advanced nations like the United States have borrowed from the Enlightenment. Don't forget that once you're done answering the prompt, you need to answer the objective reflection sentence starter in order to illustrate how you feel about today's lesson. If you need some sentence starter support for your paragraph, there are the 5 sentence starters you could use. If you'd like to gain some extra credit points towards your world history class grade, go ahead and select any of the vocabulary from the extra credit vocab bank and utilize those words inside your paragraph. If you do use these terms, please be sure to circle the words that you use in your actual paragraph. This exit ticket will be collected next class, either Tuesday if I have you for periods 1 and 2, or Wednesday if I have you for periods 5 and 6. Please make sure to bring in this exit ticket to receive full credit, as this is worth a homework grade.